Oxenfree is one of those experiences that sits with you long after you finish the game. It's a throwback to early 90s nostalgia, just as the decade was transitioning out of the 80s. A soundtrack evoking the feel of a worn-out VHS tape acts as the perfect backdrop to a setting ripped right out of a teen movie. A group of high school students get away for the weekend to go get drunk on a beach, and forget about the daunting future that lies ahead of them. The beginning of the first act feels like Freaks and Geeks or Dazed and Confused. All the archetypes are there. Ren, the stoner best friend. Clarissa, the standoffish cool kid. Nona, her best friend who tags along with whatever their cooler counterpart does. Jonas, the awkward new guy who's trying to find their place. Alex, not quite hip enough for the cool kids table, but also not nerdy enough to be outcasted, the in-between. Alex, that's you, is very purposely not a blank slate. This is her story, and while you can control certain key points of the plot through dialogue options, ultimately her backstory and her motivations are hers for you to discover. Her relationship with the others stuck out on the island is what you're there to control throughout the night. Oxenfree is, at its core, a walking simulator, but manages to carefully tiptoe around scenarios with clever writing. For example, early on there's a moment where everyone is playing Truth or Slap, a take on Truth or Dare.
You get asked a question. You have to tell the truth, but if somebody can prove that you lied, the accuser gets to slap you.
But so the developers didn't distract from storytelling, they cut the dare part out to focus on the truth. This scenario shows the game working towards its strengths rather than ham-fisting and excuses not to act on a dare. These kinds of themes and situations continue throughout the rest of the game, and really shows the writers understood what they wanted to achieve with their storytelling. While the haunting of Edward's Island is the driving force of the plot, the real meat of the game is in the characters and their own personal stories that unravel as they deal with the terrible night they found themselves in. While the idea of an adventure walking simulator type game can be off-putting for some, it's very rare that a game can nail youth culture in such a way that feels authentic.
Yeah, anybody need a smoke? I have a full pack.
Without trying to pander to an audience the writers don't feel a part of, which, for that reason alone, I think Oxenfree is worth playing. The focus is so heavy on every character interacting with one another, you really feel compelled to get involved with the conversation throughout the dialogue choices.
Strong characters give your audience a foothold into the story. Alex, as a protagonist, leaves little room for you to project yourself onto her, but that is absolutely fine when the game lets you inside her head. Seeing the dialogue bubbles pop up as unverbalized thoughts solidifies this. Oxenfree demands that you play a role as Alex, but freely lets you decide what streaks of Alex's personality have a tendency to come out. Some reviews have pointed out that Oxenfree's dialogue can get kinda choppy in places. The bubbles appear only briefly. You have to pick one fast if you want to contribute to the conversation, often cutting someone else off.
You could have let me do it. I'm just curious.
Oh, to impress you, of course. Why would I do anything except to delicately enhance your opinion of me?
This is a shame on the surface, if only because you want to hear what other characters are saying as a player. But dig a little deeper and maybe you'll find that Oxenfree's mechanical shortcomings are readable as a kind of procedural rhetoric. Well-realized characters are never perfect, and Alex is far from perfect. Depending on what you do, NPCs can get impatient with her, accuse her of being manipulative, and generally react to her in a way that's best described as realistic. You'll sway over the story as the player is acknowledged as a character flaw of hers, and in turn makes these interruptions potentially diegetic as Alex simply deciding to say what she wants when she wants to.
Had a boat. I mean, the boat's still here, but...
Oh boy, thank God for that memory.
Oxenfree's theming certainly includes some more self-reflexive elements. The game wants to make a narrative point with its mechanics, so it wouldn't be unprecedented for a reading like this to hold up. On top of that, Oxenfree wants you to make a narrative point with its mechanics too. How you navigate the environment aside, the game is in part an RPG, and role-playing games without a tabula rasa protagonist can be more revealing about yourself than those which let you run rampant. When given a character with motivations to play inside, you can be forced to seriously consider your actions.
To me, the most important part of Oxenfree is how it was a character study on myself. Developers oftentimes give you a blank slate character for a choice-based game to play out stories with. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. But personally for me, I find myself living out a character that is in no way relative to how I would act. I mean, I punch the reporter every time in Mass Effect because I want to be a jerk femme shep. With Oxenfree, it feels more compelling to be yourself because there is a very real connection to Alex, who she is, and the severity of the situation at hand. You want to see her and the gang make it out alive. If I was given my own character to develop over the course of the night on Edward's Island, I don't think for a second I would have let Clarissa out alive, because she's a shithead who antagonizes you about you being responsible for the death of your brother. Since I got into the mind of Alex and her compassions toward her friends, I couldn't leave Clarissa to die and be forgotten about by the others.
And ultimately, that's what the game is about, the relationships. The mechanics of the game are laser focused on the interpersonal scenes. Oxenfree isn't about fighting, running, or even winning. It's about talking. Examining what tools a game gives you is a great way to understand what it's trying to say. And when Oxenfree gives you Alex and the opportunity to tangibly alter her relationships with her friends, but doesn't give you a way out or a win state, it's saying something pretty clear about what's important.
Oxenfree doesn't revolutionize choice-based games, but it gives the most authentic and genuine sense of decision-making I've seen presented in a game. A real sense of character growth and self-discovery is the main focus point of your night on Edward's Island. Everything else is a catalyst to get you there.